Hey guys, Ash here again at Flight Sim Reviews, and we're looking at the PMDG MD11 in FSX, and we are just about to enter the cruise portion of the flight between Kden and Salt Lake City. I was just going to go ahead and give you a look around the cockpit so you guys can see what that looks like in flight, in climb, while entering the cruise. So to start, let's go ahead and look at the glass panels here. We'll look at the PFD to start with. These are your autopilot modes at the top. You can see here that we have pitch mode selected, nav source 1, and the aircraft is in climb thrust mode to attain the best angle of climb for speed here. You have your standard speed tape, so it's indicating 350 knots or Mach 0.83 or 83% of Mach, and obviously we have our overspeed line here. You have your artificial horizon with your lines, your purple lines there, that's your flight director. You have your altitude tape. You can see the altitude bug where it's set, flight level 350 there. On the right side here is our VSI, or our, your vertical speed indicator, and it's showing that we are doing 2200 feet per minute up. And then here is our barometric pressure. It's standardized because we're above 14,000 feet, 2992, and we're showing a heading of 265 magnetic on the compass. Moving over to this panel, we have a ground speed of 471 knots, a corrected true airspeed of 496 knots. The wind is 261 at 25 knots. Again, it's showing our compass rose at 265 magnetic. You can see our flight plan. Our waypoint is Echo Kilo Romeo. We are 90 nautical miles from it and 11.5 minutes. This is the time in the simulator, and this is the timer that I'm running between the waypoints here. As you can see on the flight plan, if we zoom in, you can see here that this is the point in the flight plan that the aircraft will stop climbing and it will reach flight level 350 in the flight. Again, on this screen, we can see traffic with the TCAS, waypoints. We're going to go ahead and decrease so it's decluttered. We can look at VORs, NDBs near us, and obviously nearest airports in case we would have to divert in any sort of emergency. On the other glass display here, we have your standard turbine parameters. We have your N1, exhaust gas temperature, N2, and fuel flow calculations. Moving over, we have a multi-function display. As I showed you guys earlier, this screen is capable of displaying a lot of information to the pilots. So right now it's telling us we have a gross weight of 470,000 pounds, fuel weight of 76,000 pounds, center of gravity of 29.8, a stabilizer trim of 0.7, cabin altitude is 5,350 feet with about a 20 foot per minute down rate at this time. Oil pressure on the turbines, temperature, quantity, nacelle temperatures, and some other engine parameters here on this screen. We're going to go ahead and switch over. This is the hydraulics page. It's going to go ahead and show you fluid levels, pressures, and hydraulic temperatures, as well as any kind of problems in the hydraulic system. Air. This is your temperature inside the aircraft of air. It's also showing your bleed air coming off the turbines. It is showing your cabin altitude, your differential pressure between the outside of the aircraft and the inside, rate at which the cabin's being pressurized, and your landing altitude, which is obviously put in by your FMC. This is a screen showing the outflow valve position on the pressurization system. Here's our fuel page. Again, we have a CG and a fuel weight. As you can see, the tanks are all showing 22,300 pounds, and the temperature is also shown This is a tail tank, and there's a reserve tank as well. Configuration is going to go ahead and show you your pressures and temperatures in the tires, and it's going to show you your flight control surface positions. If the plane was rolling or pitching at all, we would see the ailerons and the elevator, rudder, etc. working on this page. You typically use it during your pre-flight checks. Miscellaneous page. Status, that would be if we have a problem with any systems, engines, hydraulic, electrics, air, fuel, configuration, miscellaneous, or maintenance items. And we have a consequences page. If any system fails on the MD11, it goes ahead and gives you the consequences of that system failing. The pilots would obviously still go for their troubleshooting checklists, etc. But this is a quick splash page here, basically, that if the electrical bus fails, this is the consequences. So that's a nice little page to have. On these buttons on the center console here, it's hard to see, but if there is any kind of problem on any of these pages, they have little white lights underneath them to show you that there's a message or a problem in some of those systems. So you can just go ahead and push it and bring up that display. Of course, you can adjust the brightness on all of the MFDs with these knobs. I've shown you your FMC. These are your spoilers. This is your trim, throttle, quadrant, start and fuel switches, flaps, dial a flap. Up here we have your brake pressure, anti-skid, and auto brake. Down here, pretty standard, got your radios, what you're listening to through your headset selection, transponder, another radio stack here, and of course it's mirrored on the first officer side. There's also the data printer. Alrighty, let's go ahead and I'm going to turn on the dome light and I'll show you the overhead panel. This is not a 2D panel. This is available in the virtual cockpit. So here we have cargo fire and evacuation systems, the inertial reference system, cockpit voice recorder. It was nice, PMDG even modeled if you push test, it goes ahead and moves the meter. Temperature controls for the cargo. Generator, bus, fault resets. Those are for mechanics use only, pretty much, but they are modeled. FADEC mode if you need to override the full authority digital engine controls. Engine ignition, obviously A, B, and an override setting. The captain's windscreen wiper, fuel dump emergency stop. These are fire lever handles here to discharge the agent if you had an engine fire. Hydraulics panel, electrical panel, climate control air panel, and fuel panel. These are your aircraft lights. And up here we have our APU control panel with the fire discharge handle, and flight control panel essentially here. You can override the yaw dampers, override the flap limits, elevator feel, and the yokes. Obviously that's not modeled. The longitudinal stability augmentation system is fully modeled in this aircraft, and if you did have a problem with it, you can go ahead and override it with these switches. Cabin pressurization, you can obviously manually set that, but the aircraft can totally handle it automatically. Anti-ice, if you were in icing conditions, you go ahead and flip those on or off. Annunciator light tests, fuel used reset, and engine max pointer reset. And again, we have a first officer's windshield wiper knob. And I'll go ahead and pop back into the virtual cockpit and show you what that looks like when you're in the VC. Also, there's a timer here, very much like Boeing. So just to give you a quick look around the cabin, as you can see, PMDG has done a really nice job making it look nice at night. This is with the dome light on. If we go ahead and extinguish the dome light, very nice looking cabin for nighttime operations. I was going to go ahead and pop into the overhead panel again just to show you. These systems are all automatically controlled in the MD11, and PMDG has modeled it as such. But if you do have any kind of problem with it, you can go ahead and go into these system manual override switches and totally take control of all these systems yourself and override what the plane's doing if there was some sort of fault. The plane is totally capable of keeping the center of gravity correct with the fuel, etc. So unless you run into an emergency, that's pretty much all automatic while you're flying. Not a whole lot of tinkering that you have to do with that. And your typical glare shield, floodlights. Obviously you have your electroillumination behind the lettering, and then you have your floodlight over the top of the panel. So barometric pressure minimums for your approaches, obviously your settings for your map, range, which VOR it's tracking. I can show you that. But if we have VOR1, we can see that we're tracking the EKR VOR, and we're 22 miles away. Also, it will work for ADF. Typical autopilot. This is to override the flight control system if you had a problem. And of course, you've got your speed, heading, altitude, etc. And then, of course, it's mirrored over on the first officer's side. So, I hope that gave you a pretty good look at the cockpit of the MD11 at night. It really is a fabulous airplane, as you can tell. Go ahead and give you an outside shot here. Next, we're going to probably do an approach, and I'll go ahead and show off the auto land features of this aircraft. I thank you for watching, and I hope you stay tuned for more flights and reviews.